Oh, we bought a 2009 Mini S convertible. Cool little car until it isn't. After 5 months, the top timing chain guide crumbled and spat itself everywhere, and that caused a catastrophic failure. Now, it wasn't going to be worth paying someone to rebuild it or even put a second-hand engine in, just too expensive. So that meant I was going to have to learn about the N14 engine and how to fix it. So I tore it to pieces and paid for all the parts and put it all back together. So I put piston rings in it, a bunch of valves, the timing chain kit, obviously, it needed head gaskets and other gaskets, and then it needed a high pressure fuel pump, which was not cheap at all, and a bunch of other parts like stretch bolts for the head and all that kind of thing. So a few months later, and many hours of work and a lot of dollars later, the car was back, it was running. However, it still had misfires a little bit here and there, and there are just about 20 reasons that it might have a misfire. The thing that finally cured the misfire was putting a new set of coils in it. Probably should have done that earlier, but I'd spent so much money. So I put these coils in it, and it was good for a while, until it wasn't, and it started misfiring again, and it was getting worse, and I was trying to figure out why it was misfiring, and then it was running on 3 cylinders. It basically wasn't doing anything on number 4 cylinder. Did a compression test, good compression in 1, 2, 3, no compression at all in number 4. I put an endoscope kind of camera down inside it, had a bit of a look around, couldn't see a hole in the piston. So I thought, okay, hopefully it might be a burnt valve. That would be a better scenario. Sure enough, once I'd taken it apart, very damaged exhaust valve. And not uncommon, so I hear. So I had the head on a table in the kitchen for weeks while I worked on it and waited for parts. I stood it up on its side and I poured solvent down inside the ports to see if any of the other valves were not sealing properly, and sure enough there were a couple of others that I needed to grind. I replaced the exhaust valve that was damaged, bedded in other valves, and also just tried to clean up everything as much as I could, including trying to clean down inside the back of the valves. But hey, it's such a hard job to get the valve compressor tool to actually compress the springs because there's so little room to move that I didn't want to take all of the valves out again as I had in the previous build. While I had the engine apart, I also replaced the water pump because it was easily accessible. I read about what causes this, and the theory goes that because there's so much carbon buildup in these engines on the back of the intake valves, if a little piece of that breaks off, it can get between a valve and the valve seat, get stuck there, and then it will superheat, and that will burn the valve. Now, the reason they get so much carbon buildup is because they are a GDI engine, or gas direct injection engine, meaning the injectors are firing the fuel in below the valves instead of through the back of the valves like in other systems. And that means that there's no fuel washing the back of the valves, so the carbon builds up. Once we got the car running, even with it not idling particularly well, we used CRC GDI intake valve cleaner, which you spray in little bursts down into the throttle body while the car is idling rapidly for a fast idle, and then you let it heat soak, and then you drive the car, and it's meant to remove most of the carbon off the back of the valves. So we did that, but we still had the idle problem. I tried a few things. I tried swapping coils, I tried testing coils, I tried looking at spark plugs, I checked the timing was still in the correct position. That takes quite a lot of work to get it to stay there, by the way. I also checked the Vanos sprocket to make sure that it wasn't broken, so it wasn't freewheeling. None of those worked, still had this erratic idle. And then in my research, I found on a YouTube channel which is called I think Mike MDS or Mike MDs, where they work on a lot of these minis, and their shop mini they had the same problem with. They had rebuilt the engine and then it had started doing this very same thing. Now, what Mike MDs found was that the Vanos solenoid was at fault, and that was causing this erratic idle. When I was taking the coils out that I had put in the car just a few months before, the rubber that seals onto the spark plug got stuck on all of those. They wouldn't come off the spark plug. They just ripped off the end of the coil. So I had to soak them in WD-40 overnight and then use a wire with a bent hook on the end to pull the pieces out. Now they were aftermarket non-OEM coils. They ran well, but that was a bit of a problem. Next, I ordered a Vanos solenoid and I ordered a set of coils, which hopefully would be good ones. They arrived. I put them in. Problem solved. Now the car runs beautifully. So it's a great little car when it's going, but boy, what a nightmare to get it going properly. So many problems it can have. So the air intake is in the left or passenger side of the grille, and so it goes up through a big ducting and into the air filter box, through the air filter, and then out another big ducting down into the turbo. And you see there's a feed coming out of the valve cover into that, and then down through the intercooler across the front of the car, of course, and then back up on the driver's side and up across the front of the engine, and then drops down to the throttle body on the inlet manifold. So at the moment I've got the intake side PCV valve or crankcase ventilation valve blocked off, and on the turbo side I've put the oil catch can in that line, and the idea is that you gather the majority of the oil in the catch can so it doesn't go through the turbo and the intercooler. So according to what I've read, if you block off the intake side PCV valve like I have done, it normally would open at idle and when you're just cruising, and then the turbo side that shuts and the turbo side opens when you're accelerating and under load. So if you've blocked off that intake side, then apparently that will just make the one on the turbo side open pretty much most of the time. That seems to be like it doesn't affect the running of the car, having that blocked off. The car is running perfectly well, but there is a fair bit of residual oil around the place, and I am wondering if there is sort of oil escaping around gaskets and things just because of there being too much pressure in the air, if the ventilation is not actually happening all the time. For now it's running perfectly, and I will put another oil catch can on it shortly, I hope.